Hello everyone and welcome to Rob's Rogues and the Batman universe. Today we're taking a look at DC Comics Nightwing, or the New 52. They're just removing the New 52 from the comics and figures now. We are taking a look at Nightwing from DC Collectibles. I don't know why I felt the need to do that, I just did. It used to say the New 52 right up here. As we have recently found out in the solicitations that are going to be happening in the month of June, after Convergence is over, that's the new big series where everything changes in DC Comics, the New 52 by title only is going away. Excuse me, I thought I was going to have to cough right there. So you won't be seeing the New 52 DC Comics anymore. It'll just be back to just being DC Comics. The New 52 continuity will still be there, but I think because of Convergence, some things are going to change here or there. And if you watch my Sunday Comics Corner show that I'm doing, you'll find out more about Convergence and what's going on in comics in there. But we're here to take a look at Nightwing, and not for here to me talk about comics, but we have a comic character. Never mind. This figure was supposed to have come out last year in 2014, and if I remember right, he had early solicitations for coming out, I think right around the same time Red Robin and Batgirl and Supergirl came out. That was it was supposed to be Supergirl, Batgirl, and Nightwing were supposed to make up that wave, but then they decided to bring Red Robin out instead of Nightwing, which, me being a big Red Robin fan, that made me very happy, but I didn't think it was going to be this long before we got the Nightwing figure, the actually proper standard Nightwing figure in their, I wouldn't call it generic line, but it's not really the Artist Series line, it's just the standard DC comic book character action figure line, if that makes sense at all. It probably doesn't. I would have thought he would have probably come out before the Capullo series Nightwing, but the Capullo series Nightwing came out first. And now in the, I about said the New 52, now in DC Comics, Nightwing is dead, but Grayson lives on in his own comic as a secret agent super spy. So I would imagine before too long we're going to probably see a Grayson action figure. So there's some of the history about why this figure took so long for it to come out, other than they just decided to delay it for whatever. I initially thought he was probably going to come out in the month of April, which would actually be the 75th anniversary of Dick Grayson, Robin, you know, etc. So it came out in February, which is really cool, the month of my birthday, so hey, maybe it's a late birthday present. Here's the package. Very standard for the traditional line of DC Comics action figures, with the peel back window that we've now seen a million times over, and a red color scheme, which is very much the same red as Red Robin and Red Hood. So here is the side panel of the box here depicting the figure, and it is sculpted, as I punch the camera here, pardon me, Joseph Mina, which I have never, so far in the New 52 line of action figures, this is the first figure that I have bought where I have seen the Joe Mina name. Now, this is also would be based off of the designs of Brett Booth, who took over the artist duties of the Nightwing comic for a short time before he left, and then again before the comic was canceled to move away for the Grayson title. So Brett Booth did do a little bit of tweaking to the New 52 version of Nightwing, and I'll talk about those once we look at the actual figure. The side panel, I talk about these every now and then, and here you go. Here's a perfect example of, is my red too much of a red? If it was just the right shade, it would almost look like the silhouette is right there. But the silhouettes, I have said that I like a lot of these, but some of them look really generic or poor. Some of them are really good looking, and this one is kind of just, I mean, it's an okay silhouette, but I think it's just an okay silhouette. The back of the box, let's move this up a little bit so we can see the rest of the back of the box. Again, they've gone away with any type of description at all. You just see the 3 figures that would have technically or actually made up this wave had they come out when they were supposed to, and that would have been Supergirl, Batgirl, and of course a Nightwing himself. And there's the back, just the generic pose of the action figures from the New 52. So there we are. What we're going to do, we'll pause the camera real quick, we will get Nightwing out of package, and we will take a look at the long-awaited, I would say final member, even though technically we do not have a Damian from DC Collectibles yet. And then technically we do have one, but one of the final members of the Bat family to be made into action figure form. We will be right back. Alright, we've got Nightwing out of package. He looks great. I gave him a quick once-over to make sure he doesn't have any red splotches anywhere. I've seen a couple people's reviews where maybe Nightwing's got a splotch of red paint on the butt or the shoulder or the middle of the back, but I think all of my paint apps, as far as the red, are nice and clean. Maybe in a couple spots, like up here in the shoulder, there's a little bit of black that kind of bled through, but nothing major on the figure, so I think I've got a really good one here. And not that I've seen a lot of them, but I've only seen just a couple reviews so far. It seems like the 2 or 3 people that I've watched so far at least have some red dot somewhere, and I do not, so I'm very, very happy and thankful. Like I said, this particular Nightwing is from about issue 18, I believe, 18 or 19, I'll put up the correct image here in a little bit, of Brett Booth. Brett Booth took over the art duties for a little while in the Nightwing New 52 series after Eddie Burrows stepped down. Eddie Burrows had some really good artwork, but I don't know if the time constraint was too much for him. They had a couple different artists end up taking over for Eddie after a while, and Eddie was only doing just the cover art and maybe a few interior pages. But Brett Booth decided to tweak a few things on the Nightwing costume. If you remember, the Capullo series did not have the red stripe that ran all the way down to the fingertips. It kind of stopped here at the gauntlet. So Brett Booth was always a fan of the Nightwing with the long stripe going down the arm, going into the fingertips. And the front design was always the same as the back, and Brett Booth changed that to just make more of a sweeping action. He also included like this red little belt accent that went in here, and then gave Nightwing a red collar, and then if we can zoom into the eyes, he gave a red outline around Nightwing's eyes. So from time to time in the comics, if Nightwing were to use his Nightwing vision, that would become red, so the white part of the mask would disappear and become completely red. So I don't know if you can quite tell that it's red there in the camera, but it is in fact red. So what I'll do here real quick, let me set this guy down. I will bring up a couple images as we look at the crotch of Nightwing here. I apologize about that. Let's wouldn't be a review of mine if I'm not zoomed in really close. I will show a couple images of Eddie Burrows Nightwing, and then the Brett Booth Nightwing. You can kind of see where he changed it, and here even in the bird part of the design he made the tail just a little bit more predominant there and gave the peak of the bird a little bit more character as well. So here are some images from the Nightwing comic. Alright, here's the picture of Eddie Burrows' art from Nightwing at the very beginning of the New 52, and then we can see the subtle changes from Brett Booth here and a couple slides. The changes the bird logo. Here's Nightwing in the Batman Superman comic, and then Scott McDaniels here doing one of the last drawings of Nightwing before the series turned to Grayson. Okay, we are back here taking a look at Nightwing. Now, if you saw the last couple images there, I've tried to find some of Nightwing's Eskrima sticks, and I do want to talk about them for a little bit before we get into articulation on the figure. These, this is something else Brett Booth did. Instead of having Nightwing have his Eskrima sticks attached to his back, he put them down here like they were holsters for like a gun or a baton that a police officer would use. So, which is kind of fitting because Dick Grayson in the old continuity was a police officer and he did have a baton for a while. So I thought that's kind of maybe a little tip to the hat to the old DC universe. But these are way too small. They're just little clips here to the side and they fit in easy enough. But look how tiny these Eskrima sticks are. I mean, these should be a lot long. I mean, it's like a candle. Like we have a candlelight ceremony, and I'm gonna light the candle for the bride and groom for their wedding. Maybe for he and Starfire's wedding. Yeah, it's entirely too tiny. So I tried to show you a couple of those. After Brett Booth took over the duties for a while, he kind of took a page from the Arkham City video game where the Eskrima sticks were kind of had the electric shock function to them. So in a little bit, I'm going to bring up the Arkham City Nightwing figure just to do some Nightwing comparisons. And I'm hoping that those Eskrima sticks will fit this Nightwing. I just think these are way too tiny. I mean, on the side, I guess it's not too bad to kind of just have him, see him hold him here. But for actually, for him to hold, I just think they're out of proportion with his hands. And in the comics, he didn't draw them that way. They're not that tiny. They are, you know, much larger like you would expect them to be. Okay. Enough of the Eskrima stick discussion here. Let's get on to the articulation of this guy. All right, the head of Nightwing is on the standard DC, I about said DC Universe Classics, DC Collectibles ball joint. Again, certain characters can look up depending on the way they've sculpted the head. There's no hair getting in the way, but I think with the just the way the head is made and the way the neck is probably seated onto the head, kind of just stops him from being able to look up. He can look down a little bit, but it's not overly pronounced. Can tilt side to side, but his best range of motion is just left and right with just very minimal up and down. Something I did want to point out, just the extra sculpting that is on this figure, just as far as the panel lines. You can see it in the gauntlets here, and the spikes on the gauntlets, the bat spikes, to unify them as a family, and then the sculpting on the boots. I wanted to point those out, just the knee pads. So unlike the Capullo figure that was almost just strictly black with very little attention to the bodysuit, this particular version did get all of those beats correctly. So, okay, moving back on, as I'm just all over the place here. The arms go up about this far, almost 90 degrees. Just turn at the bicep, which is a couple of these joints are still really stiff. The elbow right here is really stiff on this guy, so I'm going to have to do the hot water trick and get that to loosen up a little bit, or a hair dryer. Does turn at the gauntlet, single bend at the elbow. So I was talking about elbows. No waist swivel or ab crunch, which I'm fine with. This particular line is kind of borderline statue, borderline action figure, and it would have messed up the sculpt here quite a bit, so I'm glad they didn't do that. Has the, move the arms back a little bit, I guess newly designed ball joints, which they used to be clear, but if you could see there, this is a black plastic, and they generally try to pick the color of plastic to match the basic part of the figure, so you don't see the clear joint or a white joint in there. So we can get into the splits decently, and that was something Brett Booth liked to do with Dick Grayson, is put him in splits in a very Spider-Man-esque pose. Now the legs go forward. These particular joints on DC Collectibles, they haven't quite got the leg forward and back rotation quite figured out yet. It does more of a sweeping action, but you can get him into some poses if you want to do a kick pose. Not a great kick pose for you ACBAers. Does turn at the upper thigh, single bend at the knee, and then has the ankle pivot. So that is it for Nightwing, aka Dick Grayson, which is Nightwing No More. So what I'm going to do, as like I always like to do here, is comparison time. It's team building time, so I can finally get all of the proper members of the Bat family in the same aesthetic and line from DC Collectibles, and I'll show you some other Nightwings. So, like I said, it's comparison time, so let's go and do that. Alright, here are the two Nightwings for the New 52 that have been made so far. And as you can tell, the Capullo series is a much thicker and beefier figure than the standard Nightwing is now in the Justice League line, or whatever line, the proper line, I guess you would call it. So you can see just the changes in the bird logos and the way the striping goes. The Capullo series is a more of a glossy black, and even some really glossy and shiny black. In this Nightwing, and the Nightwing here is more of a flat black. You can kind of see the aesthetic choices just in the collar, the long stripes going, and the red-ish type belt here. So I think for some people, as they're putting their figures together and trying to find that definitive Nightwing, I think there's parts of both of these that I like a lot. But maybe I'm anal the way I like to pose my action figures. Having this Nightwing stand with the standard Justice League figures looks really off. Nightwing looks way too thick if you only have the Justice League Batman. Maybe this Nightwing isn't totally for you. I think the preview images for the face of this particular Nightwing were not doing him justice. It really made it look like he had a beak, mask, and nose, but I think they kind of fixed that here. I didn't get a chance to talk about that in my initial looking at the figure. Some people didn't like the hair. I kind of like the hair. Olivia said it, and I kind of like it that way for Dick Grayson. She said it's like Nightwing's mom combed his hair for his high school class picture, so he'd have the perfect head of hair. I would think Nightwing would be a little, you know, vainish, maybe a little bit, trying to be the pretty boy and make sure his hair is just right for all the ladies out there. So there's, you know, that. And again, that was another Brett Booth touch with Nightwing's hair a little bit. I always thought, you know, Dick Grayson would probably keep his hair a little bit more kept up than probably the other Robins, and even Bruce too, that he would probably be the best dressed out of the whole entire bunch. So I'll bring up another Nightwing here. And here's the DC Collectibles Batman Arkham City Nightwing that I mentioned earlier, that I think has probably the best Eskrima sticks out of any Nightwing currently made. The Capullo series that you just saw there had basically black sticks. The Mattel had, you know, decent Eskrima sticks, but generally they're just a stick. DC Collectibles spared no expense or no amount of detail to these Eskrima sticks, which I think are really, really cool. And this is what Brett Booth, for a while, was designing for Nightwing. So I hope he can hold these, and I believe they'll work so much better. So if I want to do some ABC BA, if I'm even saying that right, poses, see, I think these look so much better. Don't they look a lot better than these teeny tiny little sticks? I mean, look at that. It's almost just the handle of the other stick. Now, I think I could probably put these here. I mean, yeah, they are quite large, so maybe that's why they made them smaller. Suspension of disbelief, maybe. I think they would have worked better if you put them here. So I guess just having him at his sides isn't too bad, but I think if I was going to take some pictures and put him in some type of a fighting pose, I would definitely use the Arkham City Nightwing Eskrima stick. So that was just my own comparison, just for myself, just to kind of see which sticks were better. I knew these were going to be better, but as far as having him on his side, suspension of disbelief, they look okay, but maybe it's just me. Here are Batman and Nightwing standing, I would say side by side, but looking at each other. Dick, I need you to do something. I need you to be a secret agent. I'm going to tell everybody that you're dead, and this is somehow going to backfire on me later, but I don't think it's going to right now. Okay, Bruce. Alright, I think due to the way just Batman is leaning a little bit, at least on camera, it gives the impression that Nightwing might be a little bit taller, but at least from my naked eye here, Batman is taller, about just above the eyes. He is taller. I think you can kind of tell there he's kind of leaning back a little bit. So at least he is in correct height and size with Batman, as the Capullo series was not with this Batman. He looked way too big and bulky. There. Now I can finally say that this shot is 100% correct the way that I want it. Everybody is in the same style and aesthetic, even though Damian Robin is not in the new 52. Hasn't had a figure made yet. He is at least in the right size and scale, even though Red Robin is probably a tad tall. It does work here. Alright, here is my completed new 52 Bat family lineup here, so that's pretty cool that these are all the figures that are currently out. Again, I know with the exception of Damian, I know there's very few of us that have this Damian, so if you have him, you obviously know what a great figure he is. He fits in perfectly here. And this Nightwing looks really good with the rest of the standard new 52 figures here. The Capullo series was a little bit too bulky for these guys here, but this Nightwing works very, very good with these figures, and I couldn't be more pleased with the way they all look together. Final thoughts on this guy. He's a great final addition for the new 52 Batman figures. Again, I'm kind of crossing my fingers that maybe we will get a actual new 52 Damian figure kind of in this Justice League line, but if not, at least now everybody looks good together on my shelf. Nobody's real thick or extra bulky. They all kind of look the way they should aesthetically together. So today we've been taking a look at the Nightwing figure, the new 52, or the standard Justice League, or the standard DC Collectibles Nightwing figure, however you decide to say that. And as always, this is Rob for Rob's Rogue signing off, saying we will see you guys next time.